For Snape's sympathizers, he was an ambitious and cunning Slytherin hero with a tragic ending. For those who can simply never forgive him, Snape was necessarily a cruel teacher who wanted to make everyone's lives as miserable as his own. Of course, it's a big question, but an important one. Was Snape actually a good guy or a bad guy? Is it even possible to measure? Let's find out. Snape despised Harry at first sight. When Harry first met Snape, he was all very villain. He hated Harry because he reminded him of James, his childhood bully. And yet Harry did absolutely nothing to trigger Snape. As Dumbledore once pointed out, Harry's personality was much more like his mother's, and yet Snape could only see what he wanted to see. As such, Snape was a constant source of misery in Harry's life, since Hogwarts was meant to be a place of refuge for Harry after his childhood with the Dursleys. He was forced to believe that Harry is just a copy of his childhood bully, mediocre, arrogant as his father, a determined rule breaker, delighted to find himself famous, attention-seeking, and impertinent. "You see what you expect to see, Severus," said Dumbledore without raising his eyes from a copy of Transfiguration today. "Your teachers report that the boy is modest, likable, and reasonably talented. Personally, I find him an engaging child." That wasn't towards Harry alone. Snape was cruel to the others as well. However, no excuse for why he was so mean to Neville, and Hermione even got a horrific remark at one point too, when he called an ambitious, intelligent young teenager an insufferable know-it-all. Neville might not have been the best at potions in his first year, but everyone would have messed up ingredients with the disappointing results. Neville's fear of Snape was so great that even his boggart took Snape's form, and it's pretty upsetting to think that a child's worst fear was one of his teachers. However, since Neville could also have been the subject of the prophecy that eventually led to Lily's death, it could be that Snape hated him as much as Harry due to this, because if the prophecy had been about Neville, Lily would have lived. Snape basically was a product of his childhood. Although we don't know too much about Snape's home life, he most certainly came from a broken family. In the memories of Lily, the Harry watches in the pensive, he doesn't seem particularly joyful when Lily asked him about his parents, and Snape briefly mentions how much they have been arguing. There is another remark made about Snape's muggle father, who doesn't like anything much apparently. As such, Hogwarts should have been the place where Snape could have a fresh start. As a particularly talented student, he should have been happy at the wizarding school, but he didn't, and it was all because of James and Sirius choosing him as a target from the very first day. Not to forget his love for Lily. Possibly Snape's saving grace was his endless love for and devotion to Lily. Her friendship was one of the most important things in his life, and it destroyed him to watch his main enemy pursue her as well. After her death, for which he felt responsible, he dedicated the rest of his life to protecting her only son. Nothing can be more heroic and self-sacrificing than that. However, he would have let James and Harry die. When Snape realized that he had accidentally told Voldemort about the prophecy concerning Harry and realized that the Dark Lord intended to kill the family, he ran to Dumbledore only so that he would save Lily. He didn't care about Harry or James. "If she means so much to you," said Dumbledore, "surely Lord Voldemort will spare her. Could you not ask for mercy for the mother in exchange for the son?" I have asked him. "You disgust me," said Dumbledore, and Harry had never heard so much contempt in his voice. Snape seemed to shrink a little. "You do not care then about the death of her husband and child. You can die as long as you have what you want." Snape said nothing but merely looked up at Dumbledore. "Hide them all then," he croaked. "Keep her, them, safe. Please." There is so much more that can be said about Snape's anti-heroism, his terrible mistakes, his antagonistic personality. Of course, he eventually ended up being Dumbledore's man through and through, and spent his final years fighting for what was right. He was outraged when he discovered that Harry himself had to die to defeat Voldemort. After spending years of protecting him, yet still taught potions in a cruel, bullying and harsh way. So could we ever define Snape as good or bad? Well, the answer to that will never ever be that simple. I think the true answer is that no one is truly good or bad in the end, just made up of many different shades. Snape did terrible things and also amazing things. Both of these facts can be true at the same time. Thinking about these words from Sirius Black, we've all got both light and dark inside us. What matters is the parts we choose to act on. That's who we really are. If you want to see the early life of Severus Snape, click on this video over here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you again soon.